Funding for Frontline is provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tonight on Frontline, racial prejudice on America's best college campuses.
This is everyone's struggle, and everyone has something to gain by participating in it. So fight racism.
Is the new generation of students holding on to yesterday's biases?
A lot of the underlying question in the white community is, are the blacks that come here as intelligent as I am?
It's generally assumed by all the white students that your presence is a product of affirmative action.
Tonight, Racism 101.
From the network of public television stations, a presentation of KCTS Seattle, WNET New York, WPBT Miami, WTVS Detroit, and WGBH Boston. This is Frontline with Judy Woodruff.
"25 years ago, this summer, the Lincoln Memorial echoed with the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King. In the speech that climaxed the great Civil Rights March on Washington, Reverend King imagined an America where he said, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls and walk together as sisters and brothers. One of the great hopes of the civil rights movement was that integration, particularly school desegregation, would give black and white children real contact with each other. And that experience would build racial harmony in the next generation. The children born of that hope are now young adults, many of them attending our universities. But today there are disturbing signs that the elite of this new generation are suffering some of the same racial tensions that plagued their parents. Tonight, Frontline examines the increasing number of racial incidents on college campuses across the country, and the attitudes of black and white students that fuel these new divisions. Our program was written and produced by Tom Lennon, co-produced and directed by Orlando Bagwell. It is called Racism 101.
October 27th, 1986, the last night of the World Series. The streets of this campus were empty as students crowded into their rooms to watch the game.
High drive into deep right field. Evans back at the wall. Gone.
The tension was building between, the Sox and the Mets, and then it got so close. It got so much up to the end, and you could just hear whenever a great play was made or anything, the towers, there's 5 towers in Southwest, just resound.
This Massachusetts campus watched as the Boston Red Sox let victory slip away.
Got him.
For Boston's fans, it was a bitter moment.
The last game was just sort of the climax to something that had been building up the whole time, for a long time. So after the game ended, it was just explosive, and everyone had been drinking.
UMass students poured from their rooms to the quad below. A group of black students joined the crowd.
A group of Red Sox fans ran off the pyramid, walked up to them, asked one of the guys whether he was a Met or Red Sox fan, and when he answered he was a Mets fan, the guy pushed him, and that sort of started the skirmishes.
If there was a fight over here, everyone would run and crowd around, and then they'd be like, oh, there's something going on over here, like way across at the other tower.
In the confusion, it was no longer Red Sox against Mets. It was white against black. The violence mounted quickly.
I was startled. At first, that's why I was one of the last ones to leave, because I was like, what's going on? And then when I realized it clicked in, I was like, my God, and my life is being threatened here. I said, and it's because I'm black.
According to the official investigation, a mob, by the end, was chasing anyone black. A total of 7 black students and 3 whites were treated for injuries. 3 days later, at neighboring Smith College, a slogan was found spray-painted on a campus building. Niggers, spics, and chinks, quit complaining or get out. And in this same Massachusetts Valley, other incidents aimed at blacks have since been reported at Mount Holyoke, Hampshire College, and yet another incident at UMass. The U.S. Department of Justice reports more than 30 racial incidents on American campuses in the past 3 years. Its files read like an honor roll of the country's best universities. Harvard Business School, 1986, a newsletter filled with racial slurs. Swarthmore, 1986, racial and anti-Semitic signs tacked to the main bulletin board. Berkeley, 1987, Ku Klux Klan initials carved in a dorm room. Columbia University, 1987, a racial brawl. And the list goes on. University of Pennsylvania, Fairleigh Dickinson, Purdue, University of Alabama, Penn State, and more. A recent poll of students at the University of Virginia listed race as the most serious problem on their campus. Ann Arbor, Michigan, home of the Michigan Wolverines. The game against Ohio State is a landmark, the meeting of 2 great rivals, the last game of the season.
This is my last game of my senior year. I got all my friends around me. Really sad.
This is college right here, Saturday at the game, at the stadium, watching Michigan win.
The University of Michigan is proud of its football team and proud of its tradition as one of America's great universities. Michigan is ranked among the top 10 in the country, as competitive in the classroom as it is in sports. But in the spring of 1987, this campus was torn by racial strife. It began at the university radio station, WJJX.
It's 252 here, WJJX, the station that storms the dorms. Oh, wait, the phone's ringing. Hello, you're on the air.
Hey, what's happening?
What's going on, big guy?
Not much, dude. I got some great jokes, man.
Some great jokes? Like what?
Okay.
Remember, they have to
All
be
right.
clean. This is radio.
This is good, this is good.
This is radio. Keep
All
it
right.
clean, son.
What do you get when you cross a black and a groundhog?
What?
6 more weeks of basketball season.
That's a pretty bad. Well, hang on a second. Let me go find the laughter soundtrack. Meanwhile, you can go tell another one.
All right, why do blacks always have sex in their mind? Because all their pubic hair is on their head. Oh, they loved that one.
Yeah, they sure did. All right, here, try it again. Any more?
Okay, yeah, who are the 2 most famous black women in history?
Who?
Aunt Jemima and Motherfucker.
For those of you who heard that out there, remember, this is a family radio station. This is a phone caller.
Your first reaction is anger. Because, you know, you come from a tough environment where, I don't know if there's something pathological about it, but your first response is a physical response. And that's my first feeling about, you know, said, let's go straighten this guy out. Let's take care of him right here.
I guess it was shock. Everybody was shocked. They couldn't believe that somebody would actually come across the air and say something like that.
People were saying everything was an isolated incident, but you started to see isolated incidents at the University of Michigan. You started to see isolated incidents at the University of Massachusetts. You started to see isolated incidents at Mount Holyoke, and so forth. So now we have thousands of isolated incidents that were going on.
Students organized quickly to condemn the program.
You have to demand change. This is everyone's struggle, and everyone has something to gain by participating in it. So fight racism.
This incident was not the first. 2 weeks before, a racial flyer had been slipped into a meeting of black women in a Michigan dorm. The flyer declared open season on porch monkeys, known as jigaboos, jungle bunnies, and spooks.
I think a lot of people are very angry about what happened in Cousins' dormitory. I want to hear, are you angry? Yeah! Are you prepared to commit yourselves to fighting racism? Yeah!
Students formed the United Coalition Against Racism. They called on the university to improve conditions for minority students and increase black enrollment. Blacks were a tiny minority on the campus, and for them, the incidents triggered deep-seated grievances.
Black and other minority recruitment was not up to the same levels that it was even in the early 70s. We felt that was an indicator of a lack of initiative on the part of the school.
You're 45 miles away from a city with over 1 million black people in it, and you mean to tell me that you can't find over 1,000 who are academically gifted enough to come to this university? You've got a country of, what, 22 million blacks, and all you can find is 1,000? Affirmative action aside, that's baloney, plain and simple. And if you want to talk about lessening enrollment standards, does anybody complain when the university goes flying across the country to get some athletes here? They won't go and make that effort to find a gifted black student, but they can find somebody for the football team.
Tension mounted on the campus. The university began an investigation of the incidents. Meanwhile, black students started to organize a separate movement.
Black students felt disempowered and they felt they couldn't protect themselves or protect their interests.
Charles Winder became a leader of the new all-black group.
I was very proud of the fact that black students decided to stand up. As Martin Luther King said, you know, that a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. And that was one of the things that we spoke about at the rally, was that, you know, it's time for us to stand up so that nobody will be able to ride our backs on campus anymore.
The group was called the Black Action Movement, BAM, and it galvanized the black students on campus.
I had never seen 500 black people in one place on this campus. The feeling for me was just incredible. And there was so much energy and power in that moment.
The Black Action Movement supported the original student demands for higher black enrollment, and it added more demands of its own: money for an all-black student union, and the immediate granting of tenure to every black professor at the U of M. BAM gave the university 5 days to respond.
One man there had a sign, a placard, with a picture of Malcolm X with a machine gun peering around a corner, and underneath it said, "By any means necessary." And I saw that personally as being quite an affront.
What white students saw and what the university saw was what black students felt. Black students felt that it was necessary to speak in terms of black power.
I definitely felt threatened. I mean, who wouldn't feel threatened when, and that seemed to be the sentiment of a lot of the people there, that I felt it. I didn't feel very comfortable.
The next day, student activists occupied the administration building and confronted University President Harold Shapiro.
We are not here to negotiate demands. That wasn't what we were invited to do, and that's not what we agreed to do.
I'm going home, I'm going to study, and I'm going to come up with another logistical plan to shut this place down. What are you going to do, sir? What are you going to do? Amen.
This guy? I'm not sure what the question is.
The question is, are you going to come in this room? Are you going to come in this room and meet with us and set a time to meet with the regents earlier than your scheduled meeting? Are you going to meet with Band 3 no later than next week? Or are you going to sit here and do nothing?
I'll be glad to come into the room.
I believe that confrontation is necessary if one is going to affect change in a structure, a power structure. power doesn't concede anything without a demand. It's so simple of a phrase, but yet it's something that people don't realize that in order to make people share power, one has to take that power, one has to demand that power, and those things are not done quietly.
Band 3 will be meeting Monday morning at 7 o'clock with President Shapiro in a negotiating stance to discuss the possible implementation of the Band 3 demand.
We've decided to request that one of the Black national leaders come down sometime this week to help us relate our story and our concerns to the administration here.
Jesse Jackson flew in from Louisiana last night and held a midnight meeting with concerned students. He says he's here because the situation has become explosive.
The black students asked Jesse Jackson to represent them in direct negotiations with the university. Jackson agreed.
You know, it kind of opened up everybody's eyes, like everybody's serious. This is serious. This is no joke. So I think we wanted to end it up, and the school wanted to get it together and get this pressure off their backs.
President Shapiro was opposed to quotas by race, but in direct negotiations with Jackson and the black students, Shapiro agreed to a target of 12% black enrollment. And he agreed to other demands, including funds for a black student union and special pay incentives for black faculty.
There's darkness on campuses around this country, but from Ann Arbor, a light is shining today because somebody had the sense to turn on each other and love each other and respect each other. God bless you.
3 days later, the WJJX radio caller identified himself and publicly apologized. One white student was evicted from his dorm after admitting he wrote a racist flyer aimed at black women. The campus returned to its routine. In a few short weeks, the policies of the university had been changed, but that victory had come at a price.
A lot of what you begin to see now are a lot of white students saying enough. A lot of white students are beginning to say, I'm sick of hearing about racism. We dealt with that 6 months ago. And so I think, in reality, things are even worse. Things possibly are worse now than they were 6 or 7 months ago.
Dartmouth College, Hanover, New Hampshire. It's the weekend of Winter Carnival. The students in college today were born around the time of Martin Luther King's death. They were in elementary school when busing reached its peak. Today's students were about 13 years old when Ronald Reagan was elected president. As Reagan took office, conservative voices emerged on campuses. The boldest new voice was a student journal called the Dartmouth Review.
A great newspaper will print the news and raise hell. And we are a collegiate rebel newspaper in the best sense of the word.
Chris Baldwin, a junior at Dartmouth and editor of the Dartmouth Review.
The Review stands for conservative opinion at Dartmouth College. No longer will the liberal sheep be able to graze on the Hanover Plain unnoticed. The Dartmouth Review's here, and we've had profound impact here at the campus. Did you get anything out of the American Spectator? Are we done with this?
The Review is independent of Dartmouth College. It's a splinter movement, a radical cell, but not the kind common in the 1960s. No posters of Che Guevara or Bob Dylan to be found here. The heroes are of a different sort. In a style that is one half National Review, one half National Lampoon, this magazine has for years waged war on Dartmouth's policies, including the college's efforts at affirmative action.
The review thinks that Dartmouth College ought to be a meritocracy. We think admissions to Dartmouth College ought to be based on academic excellence or other talents, either musical or other in the arts or athletic. And we do not feel that anybody ought to be aided by the circumstance of birth, whether you are the child of an alumni member, or whether you happen to be black or Hispanic or a woman. That's irrelevant. What counts is merit. What have you done? Who are you? And why should Dartmouth let you in?
In 1982, the Review published an article that sent shockwaves through the college, a satire of black students at Dartmouth. These boys be saying that we be coming here to Dartmouth and not taking to classics. You know, Homer, Shakespeare. But I hear they all be cold in the ground, 6 feet under. And what you be asking us to learn from them? We be culturally lightened too. We be taking hard courses in many subjects, like Afro-Am studies, women's studies, and policy studies. And who be mouthing about us not being good read? I be practically knowing roots cover to cover, till my mind be boogieing to the words. And I be watching the Jeffersons on TV till I be blue in the face. The Dartmouth faculty and administration reacted with alarm. Gregory Ricks, formerly an assistant dean at Dartmouth.
My response when I read the article the first time with we be this and we be that and this, that, and the other, you know, to me it was like a bad joke. It was something that, you know, came from old films like Birth of a Nation and stuff like that. No one would even deal with this in any serious kind of way in these times, especially at a place like Dartmouth. And to me, it was like almost the dark ages.
The bottom line is that there are some students here at Dartmouth College who do not speak proper English. And that is very sad. It's because they have not been afforded the same opportunities as other students. But we cannot admit people at Dartmouth College who are less academically qualified than other students. And the heat and the explosive attention that article generated is because that satire was so effective. It went right for the jugular. And it challenged the academia's taboo that you cannot treat black people equally. You have to lower standards. You have to be extra sensitive. The Dartmouth Review feels that all races ought to be treated equally. If they're going to be criticized, criticize them equally. And in effect, race really should have no bearing whatsoever when you're going to be investigating a professor, or when you're going to be attacking a policy, or when you're going to be satirizing a very sad condition that is here at Dartmouth College. And that is, there are some students at this college who are not academically prepared to be here. That's what that article said, and that's why everybody was so upset about it. And they were so upset about it because it was true.
One of the reasons why people were so angry when it came out is I think they were scared, because there's always a feeling that it's going to end, and all of a sudden the doors are going to be closed, and we're going to go back to the 1920s and 1930s in these institutions. And I think that's even the feeling today. I mean, I think the Review is on a mission, and sometimes, you know, it ebbs and flows in terms of its success rate. But I think that that even today, if an article like that was to come forth, some of us, you know, we'd laugh it off, but at the same time, we take it very serious. I mean, I think I would go on to say, I take the Review very serious. I ignore them, but at the same time, there's always one eye watching, you know, what it is they do and what it is they're about, because they represent a point of thought in this country, which is very scary to me.
The influence of the Review has reached far beyond this small New Hampshire town. It has won large contributions from alumni, and its success has spawned imitators on campuses across the country. Its graduates have gone on to influential jobs. One became a speechwriter for President Reagan, another for Vice President Bush. The man who signed the original Jive column is now a speechwriter for the Secretary of Education. The man who published the column is a policy analyst in the Reagan White House. Throughout the 1980s, the Review has tried to influence Dartmouth College's policies. During these years, the college was actively recruiting minority students and teaching staff in steady numbers. The college also instituted a requirement for diversity in studies. Dartmouth students must take one course in a non-Western or non-traditional subject area. One such course is taught by Professor William Cole. It's called Music 2.
I talk about poverty, what poverty is all about, and how poverty is interfused in the music of black people, in the music of Anglo-American people, in the folk music, in the music of Native American people, how they keep their sense of themselves together through their music.
In 1983, the review published an attack on Cole's class. They said it was famous as the easiest class on campus, and they criticized Cole's repeated references to race. The article described Cole as, quote, a used Brillo pad, unquote. Cole reacted with fury and tried to confront the author of the article personally. He then filed a lawsuit against the magazine.
People think that the way they've described me is the way I am, that I'm incompetent, that the courses that I teach are gut, that they lack any academic essence to them at all. I think that the people that talk to me who are not in Hanover say they are crucifying you, Bill.
Over the years, the Dartmouth Review has continued its attacks. In its 1987 listing of the worst professors at Dartmouth, the review described Cole's classroom manner as a cross between that of a welfare queen and a bathroom attendant. The most recent clash began this year on a winter evening with a call to Professor Cole's home from the offices of the review.
Yeah, Professor Cole?
Yep.
John Sutter, I'm executive editor at the Review. We're doing a story on you this week and on music too, and I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the class. Hello, Professor Cole?
Yeah.
Why'd you hang up on me just then?
Hey, man, you people have known that I don't talk to you, all right?
Why do...
You're racist dogs, and you know that's how I think about you, okay? I don't know why you call me, man. You're just racist dogs, man. You're the scum of the motherfucking earth, all right? I know you're taping this, okay? I know you are. And I'm telling you, man, I'm going to report you to everybody I possibly can. I know that the people won't do anything about you, all right? But you're going to be reported to everybody.
A few days after the telephone call, the review published still another scathing description of Cole's course. Baldwin and 3 review members then confronted the professor at the end of class.
I went to see Professor Cole for 2 reasons. One, to give him a memo informing him that he would have the opportunity to respond to the Dartmouth Review's the article that appeared in the paper the previous week, and 2, to ask for an apology for the slanderous remarks he made about me and other colleagues on the staff.
3 review members approached Professor Cole as a review photographer stood nearby taking pictures.
Professor Cole turned to the students and said, I can't believe this. Look at this. This man is taping this. And he stood back and pointed to John Sutter's pocket, his right pocket. And we all looked down and we saw a bulge and we were thinking, no way, this can't be true. They wouldn't do that. They've just done it. And Professor Cole started screaming, remove that tape recorder from your pocket. Turn it off. Remove it.
Review staffer John Sutter switched off the tape recorder, then demanded an apology from Cole.
Professor Cole asked John to hit him. He said, can you take it from me? And it means the apology. He goes, can you take it from me? Can you take it from me? And he was the one that was inviting the physical response when he put both index fingers in my eyes and when he assaulted the student photographer. And then when he blatantly invited John for a physical response, he was sitting there taunting Sutter, just like this. Can you take it from me? Can you take it from me?
I think that the purpose of that group was to walk in and inspire Professor Cole to lash out physically. If Professor Cole did that, their job would have been reached. He would have been removed from this campus immediately. A professor cannot attack a student. And they knew that. So I think it was all very tactical and all very planned out.
The student, John Sutter, screamed at Professor Cole, so close, like an inch away from him, that he was practically spitting in his face. I mean, his face was red, his hands were balled up, screaming to a faculty member, asking him, telling him that he wouldn't leave until he signed some form apologizing for some slanderous remarks they said to him. And he did it on behalf of his newspaper. It's just so hateful, so extremely hateful.
They hate me so much that they had to come over here and cross the line in view of 18 witnesses You know what I mean? I mean, their hate is so dynamic and runs so deep that they had to step over the line and jeopardize their own career here at the college.
I'll tell you this much. If a white professor at Dartmouth College used the words Professor Cole does, the foul mouth, if he violated the standards that professors are asked to follow, if a white professor or I think many other, or any other race professor did the things that Professor Cole did, I think he would suffer administrative reprisal. The administration in Professor Cole's case has decided to ignore the issues the Dartmouth Review raised about Professor Cole.
Dartmouth College quickly expressed its support for Professor Cole. Several hundred students, black and white, gathered to protest an incident they were convinced was racial.
In that moment, it just let me know that there are people in this world that will hate you just because of your color. I mean, hate you. Not dislike you or choose not to be friends with you, but hate you.
These people, in order to turn a straightforward dispute over whether a professor should be allowed to use obscene language in class, have turned this into a racial incident.
The president of Dartmouth College spoke out against the magazine. When the Review, year after year, attacks women and members of minority groups, he said, it is virtually impossible not to conclude that its true target is diversity. Dartmouth College found Baldwin and Sutter guilty of harassment and invasion of privacy. They were suspended from college. They plan to fight the verdict in court. Class time, University of Michigan.
When I walk into a class, I feel defensive right off the bat. There's like an initial shock value to your presence. The white students are looking at you.
It's always in your mind. If you're white, you don't want to say something that would be misconstrued as being prejudiced or bigoted. It's almost to a level of how can I approach? You know, how can I make friends with this person?
Issues of enrollment and performance are open wounds on the campus. Many of the black students come from 2 Detroit high schools. Dropout rates are high.
I think a lot of the underlying question in the white community is, are the blacks that come here as intelligent as I am? Are they as able to perform as I am? I think, unfortunately, the reality on this campus is blacks are perceived as getting here because they're black.
It's generally assumed by all the white students that your presence is a product of affirmative action. That's pretty much taken as a given. First of all, they're wondering what you're doing here. And they're wondering if you're going to be as stupid as all the rest of them.
But I think the reality, though, is, and I think this is true for a lot of whites who are probably unwilling to admit it, when a black person makes an intelligent comment. And there is a certain element of surprise. There is a certain element, and this is very, very difficult to admit. There is a certain element that this is not what I should be getting from the black person.
When I was here in my first year, the whites at this university struck me as so arrogant, so pompous, and so condescending. I could not stand the sight of them. It got to the point where when I was finished with my classes, all I wanted to do was go back in my room, shut my door, and not have to see their faces. There was a cost to me because I shut myself off from people who may not have been like that. and I felt as if it was eating me up. Very literally eating me alive.
Dave Colbert went to high school in Detroit. He has dropped out of the university twice, but he's due to graduate next year.
What the degree means to me is a new set of doors open wide. And the big heading on each of those doors are the big titles, opportunity. Not just for myself, but for other blacks, other young blacks who I can see now in my neighborhoods, who see one way to escape a cycle of poverty, and it's drugs, who say education is a waste, who watch people from the neighborhood get their education, get their BMWs, walk out and keep walking, never to return again, never to give anything back to the community. I see it as a chance to help my kids and just blacks in general. It's a tool, it's a weapon to fight with.
In 1988, black enrollment at the University of Michigan rose from 5.6 to 5.7%. Student activists were quick to remind the university that at this rate, it would not reach its target of 12% black enrollment until the year 2050.
My home is over Jordan, deep river, Lord. I wanna cross over into campground.
January 15th, 1988, Martin Luther King's birthday. This year marks the 20th anniversary of King's death. The March to Honor King, here at the University of Michigan, draws some 2,000 students. The air is thick with the memory of the civil rights leader, and with the not-so-distant memory of racial strife here on campus. As King's birthday had approached, student activists had argued that the university should close its doors on that day and hold special classes on racism. The university refused.
We demand that the university make some fundamental changes that are going to affect every student on this campus. What UCAR is proposing for this term and for immediate action of the university is cancellation of classes on Martin Luther King's birthday, because if you don't cancel them, we will.
Classes are not in session. Classes are not in session. It's a united struggle, folks. Racists become sexist.
Activists have called on all students to boycott their classes and attend alternate workshops instead. Despite weeks of preparation, the boycott is not a success.
What classes are you going to? Is it more important than the dream? Please don't go to class. Please don't go to class and support the racism of this campus.
We're asking for one day. We're not asking you to drop out of school and shit. One day. They're walking right through me. I don't even exist, right?
Red backpack. Are you going to make a stand against racism? Are you? All the racists, you keep on walking. Just keep walking.
That guy out there in his bullhorn, he's saying anybody that crosses the picket line is a racist. He was calling me a racist. Is that good? I mean, that's just as bad, just in the opposite way. Why is he saying I'm a racist because I want to go to class?
I want to go through. Excuse me. Oh, no, it's not anything racist. It's pro-class. I would rather not touch you, but you are blocking my view. Excuse me. I have classes to attend.
I think they're definitely dwelling on these racist incidents too much, and they use it as a rallying point for themselves. I don't think that right now we owe them, society owes them. I mean, they definitely were victimized, but they're no longer second-class citizens, and they have to stand up on their own and do what they can do to make themselves equal.
King's birthday here at Michigan has been named Unity Day. But despite the large turnout, unity seems far away. Even the student leaders are deeply divided.
No, I say you've been misled. You've been had. You've been took. Open your eyes. We have very real differences. I could ask 10 people here what's institutionalized racism, and I get 10 different answers.
I mean, that one day, P.W. Bolter was a racist. A white person going to a class on MLK Day was a racist. I mean, everybody became a racist. I mean, the word lost all meaning.
Students had come together in the name of Martin Luther King, but there was no agreement about the meaning of his legacy today.
He was always perceived as being a person who wanted integration and assimilation. And I think that's a wrong perception of him, because I think that what he wanted was freedom for individuals to determine what they want for themselves, self-determination. And so if blacks want to associate with blacks and deal with things on that level, be free to do that, and be free to associate with whites, be free to associate with anyone that you want.
His vision, his dream included all and spoke to everyone. I'm not so sure what's going on in this campus right now is speaking to everyone. You've got one group of administration people that obviously don't want to expand to include minorities, and I think, and I might get, raked over the coals for this by some people, but I don't know how much of the minority community wishes to expand their vision to include whites. And that's pretty disturbing.
If we're going to integrate because we all want to integrate, because we want to hold hands and everybody wants to love each other, that's fine. But that's not the basis of everything, and it's more rudimentary than, let's all be friends and hold hands. It's about let's respect each other. I don't care if you like me. You don't have to like me. I might not like you either. But as long as we respect each other, for instance, on the student, I respect you because you're a student and you're working hard trying to do your thing. You respect me for the same reason. And that's all I can ask for. You don't have to like me. You can hate me all you want. Just respect me.
Mosher Jordan Dorm at the north end of the Michigan campus. On the weekend of King's birthday, an anonymous leaflet was slipped into the rooms of 4 black dormitory advisors. The leaflet was a rewrite of Martin Luther King's famous speech. It read, "I have a dream. I have a dream that one day little nigger boys and girls will walk on the other side of the street when they see a white child approaching." March 1988. It's a full year since the issues of race tore at the fabric of this campus.
His hero is Tarzan. He likes Tarzan because Tarzan is Lord of the jungle, and he wants to be Lord of this jungle.
This hero is, guess who? Rocky Dangerfield.
This is Greek Week, an annual rite of spring. A week of celebration for the campus sororities and fraternities. The sororities and fraternities are known as the Greeks. They're far removed from the political battles of this campus, but the Greeks are an important part of student life, one place where lasting friendships are formed. There are no black members of Steve Kushner's fraternity. One black student pledged this year, but then dropped out.
You don't really see black people on campus that often. The places that I go to, the places that I see, the classes, the buildings, the only thing I can think of would be they keep themselves a little separate, a little distinct from the rest of the community. There is no, like, wouldn't even know where black people hang out, where to go to even meet black people.
No one excludes people because of race or religion or anything, you know, looks or anything like that. But people tend to just weed themselves out. Like me, for instance, I'm in a sorority where we're not nationally any one thing, but here on campus, we tend to be all Jewish.
You tend to be all Jewish, or you are all Jewish?
We are all Jewish.
Across the country, campus officials have worried about the segregation in Greek life. At Vanderbilt in Tennessee, the university last year ordered its sororities to integrate or move off campus. At the University of Texas in Austin, campus officials have pressured the white sororities, but there is still no record of any black woman ever admitted. Just 2 months ago at UPenn, an all-white fraternity was shut down by the campus. This after the fraternity hired 2 black strippers to perform while members reportedly shouted racial slurs at them.
I don't think black people come in contact with the majority of the racism that is around, where white people are just together amongst white people. It's at that time that racism surfaces. Just jokes, basically, derogatory comments, maybe not solely based on race, but race is brought into it. If there's a black person that you don't like or something, then he will be a goddamn nigger or something of that sort. Whether or not you don't like him because he's black has nothing to do with it. It's just an attitude that you have against black people in general that is kept basically pretty low.
And that stuff you think is pretty common?
Yes, absolutely common.
And at this university?
I think everywhere.
Here in Ann Arbor, the Greeks have all signed non-discrimination pledges. Many have just one black member. For over a year, John Sims was the only black in Delta Tau. When he joined, he met fierce resistance, not from his white fraternity brothers, but from his black friends.
A lot of people were sort of upset with me. They were very upset with me. They couldn't understand why I would make such an assimilationist move. The idea is let's stick together. Let's keep the unity. Let's keep the faith. And by assimilating, you are somehow violating that faith. You are somehow forgetting a part of who you are or where you came from. And so when they see that, then they look at you as less of a person.
An Uncle Tom?
Kind of. Yeah.
Oreo?
Yeah, that's more specifically.
Brothers, good evening, advocates of our new heart. You're a realization of a dream come true. You're the crystallization of a vision made clear. You're the awakening of high ideas. You're the bridge on a stormy season of misfortune. You're the catalyst for the motivation to achieve. You're synonymous, unique, complete. You're heavy in mind, but not in kind.
The black fraternities are an important presence at the University of Michigan.
Cap outside, and I love you till the day I die. Right on, big brothers, right on. Embedded, embedded, embedded. News, news, news. Help us join your group love. KSI, advocates of our new heart. The ones who wear the diamond side. Whenever we reach the sky. Shut up, fucking fighting body. Shut up, fucking fighting body. Shut up.
The black fraternities are not taking part in Greek Week. They have their own traditions, their own rituals, which date back to the days of segregation. Attempts to fold them in with the other fraternities here have failed.
You can't really understand it until you do it. You know, the people that you love the most are the people that see you at your weakest points and your strongest points. And like, you know, I could say these cats, you know, they're like my brothers. They're like, you know, they blood, you know?
You need to have a chance to interact with people of your own race, own cultural background. I mean, if you take that away from a person, you're taking away a part of their identity. So you need that along with working with the main group.
We wear the black.
This is a campus of segregation for the most part. And I'm not even going to say segregation in terms of unwanted segregation or unfair segregation. I think it's more segregation by choice in terms of the social arena.
Now, I don't think that blacks on this campus separate themselves from whites, exclude whites for any particular, because they're white. They may exclude them because they're different, because they have different values, or because they, are just basically different.
I have serious fear that life for my generation is not going to be all that different from my parents' generation, and that a lot of the issues that we dealt with 20 years ago when Martin Luther King was assassinated are the same issues we're dealing with now, and very well might be the same issues that we're going to be dealing with 20 years from now on college campuses, when I'm 42.
There really isn't any time to sit down and consider it. It's only at certain instances where you stop, and it's like, boom, the problem's there, and you think about it. It's one that if you're not conscious of it, speaking for myself, my standpoint, it doesn't exist.
I don't think it's possible to eliminate racism throughout society. I just feel that people are always going to hate Jews. They've hated Jews for hundreds of years. Why, or thousands of years? Why is it going to change now? Black people are not going to like black people. I mean, it's a fact of life. It's something you have to live with.
It would be wrong for me to send my children to white institutions, especially for their undergraduate experience. And I think that I've seen enough as a black student at a white institution, both undergraduate and in law school, to realize that there are too many negative trade-offs. It's supposed to be a building experience, and I think I'd send my kids to a black school so they would experience that reinforcement and that self-building.
It's not going to matter to me. As long my children will be well informed as to what happened in the 60s, as to what happened to me on this campus. They will know black history backwards and forwards. They will know where they came from and who they are. And they're going to be proud of it, even if I have to force it down their throats. But I won't let it be the dominating factor in their life.
Will I marry a black woman? I would hope so. My mother would hope so. And the reason I say that is because I believe in keeping the race going, and the more and more we're going to mix it up, the more and more we're going to lose it.
Can be married?
Maybe.
To a black man?
Yes.
She live in a black community?
Yes.
She send her kids to black schools?
Yes.
She go to a black church?
If I went to church, I'd go to a black church.
For John Sims, the commitment to travel in both worlds, black and white, was not in question. This, despite what happened one day last year, as he made his way back to his dorm room.
I got back to my room, and I saw this piece of paper sitting there. I thought it was a flyer for some pizza place or something. And I picked it up, and I read it. And I was speechless.
What was it?
Verbatim?
Yeah.
Nigger, nigger, go away. For the white man is here to stay. Everywhere you look, everywhere you'll see the menacing branches of a tree. And from that tree, what do we see? The beautiful sight of my friends and me laughing at your dangling feet. So be forewarned and do be scared, for I, nigger child, will see you there. Take your blankety blank back to Africa before it's too late. And, I read it over so many times, as you can tell, I've memorized it. I just couldn't understand it.
The author of this flyer was never found. Other racial flyers continued to appear through the spring of 1988. but by now the campus seemed numb. The incidents drew little attention. They were referred over to the FBI, where they remain unsolved.
These racial incidents have clearly disturbed the administration at the University of Michigan. It has recently adopted an anti-discrimination code to protect students from harassment. It has expanded its support program for black students at the university and hired more black professors. But despite these actions, despite the real progress ignited by the civil rights movement, the reality on today's campuses may again be teaching us all an old, hard lesson, that people change more slowly than institutions. Thank you for joining us. I'm Judy Woodruff. Good night.
Next week on Frontline, an investigation of the CIA and its role in international drug dealing. Is the agency using drug money to finance secret operations and making America's drug problem worse?
The intelligence agencies of this country, by God, should be involved in this battle instead of working with the scum of the earth.
Watch Guns, Drugs, and the CIA next time on Frontline.
Frontline is produced for the Documentary Consortium by WGBH Boston, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Frontline was provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Educational organizations may inquire about videocassettes by calling 1-800-424-7963.